Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be an interesting video to make because of YouTube's wonderful policies. So I'm going to be using some select words, but essentially it's going to be the best way to use your firearms collection as an investment and the best way to capitalize on your return. There are no sponsors to the channel right now. If you want to help me out, you can just simply hit subscribe and comment down below. That stuff really does help, and aside of the algorithms, it helps to keep me pretty motivated to make these videos. Secondly, I do have a B channel called FF Lifestyle. It really does help get me to 1,000 and I can start monetizing both channels, and one of which will hopefully not be extremely throttled because there's no gun content over there. So any support I really do appreciate. I love you guys. Thank you very much. We are not going to be necessarily talking about the defensive side of things or the preparedness side of things. We've talked about that a lot here on this channel. Obviously, some items you're not really getting for any sort of an investment. They are for preparedness, they are for defense, and that is it. You're going to use them, you're going to beat them up, and you don't really care about any value that they have. A lot of us also get into collecting firearms. I myself am quite the collector. I really enjoy a lot of these firearms, and I view a lot of them as quite the investment. There are many different areas of the firearms world that a lot of people might think are an investment, but are actually not in any way, shape, or form an investment. And that's what we are going to be going over today. Movie lore. What do I mean by movie lore? This is an 1897 shotgun. This 1897 shotgun by itself might be a little bit of a poor example because they are worth a little bit of money. Now, this one has been heavily modified by yours truly to include a barrel chop and also a new brass bead and a few other different odds and ends there. But this shotgun is a nearly identical copy to the shotgun Brendan Fraser used in The Mummy. And I could use this shotgun to, we'll say YouTube friendly terms, get rid of for a very good amount of money over the standard shotgun that this started at. This started as a 26-inch barrel brush gun. That is 100% not always the case. If you have, kind of like me, very weird and strange movie tastes, a little bit of a spoiler alert for a gun that's coming up very soon on the channel, bringing it to the range in about a week. If you do some random one-off like clip of a gun out of a weird movie that no one knows about, this is completely null and void. But this shotgun goes as kind of like a basis there that if you're getting something that has interest in the population of not just gun people, but also movie people, it's probably going to hold its value. A lot of this depends on what you get your firearm at originally. If you got it at some crazy high dollar amount, obviously you might have overpaid, and it's going to take quite a few years to return your investment. Briefly off of movie lore and talk about war lore, lore, one of those words. You can have the same amount of interest in conflicts. The World War II American military surplus and German military surplus has always been extremely good investments and flying up in price. Now, just like movies, conflict history lore kind of changes throughout time. You don't see a lot of people like fiending over World War I memorabilia as much anymore. That changes throughout time. You don't see a lot of dudes rocking Civil War memorabilia and firearms as much as World War II. I believe, again, this kind of changes throughout time. So it's going to be kind of an up and down on what is cool. In general, Military surplus never dies. This is something that you will never, ever, throughout the entirety of me being in this industry, I have never seen a military surplus item drop lower the following year in the amount of money that it's worth. Ever. So if you buy a good condition, this is a Moss 49 here, that's just what was immediately behind me from a recent video. If you purchase right with a good shape military surplus item that is original, solid investment. Only time there's a catch to that is if you pay way more than what the item is worth, obviously. And the reason is your tried and true supply and demand. They do not currently manufacture Moss 49s. They never will again. This rifle is one of a dwindling number. Man. So if you were looking for an investment, you didn't want to watch any other part of this video, military surplus. That's your investment right there. Now, accessories adding to these rifles, 100%. Slings, random optics things, if you collect all of those to put it with a package, Moss 49 is an example, but any other military surplus rifle would do, you are going to increase the value even more. It's kind of like doing upgrades to your home that increase your home's property value. All right, let's talk about the AR-15 world and where everyone goes wrong. A modern, standard, off-the-shelf AR-15 variant is the worst possible investment that you could purchase. Although so incredible and ones that you really need to have, they are, let's talk supply and demand, a dime a dozen. And a lot of people, I think, forget that. They say it's a tool, but then they bring it into a gun shop and they say, hey, I want to get rid of this. I want thousands of dollars because of the Gucci parts that I have in my rifle. These rifles are too available right now. I have the ability to clone, if you will, rebuild this exact rifle, spray paint it. In this case, spray paint isn't a great example because that, of course, tanks the value of anything for the most part. But let's just say I rebuild this over and over and over again. I can 100%. These parts are very available. Supply and demand. There's not a huge driving factor for somebody to be chomping at the bit to purchase this. I like to have an excessive amount of ARs for is selling fodder, as well as I just love buying and collecting firearms, of course. In this case scenario, in a large collection of firearms, I don't necessarily want to get to a point that, hey, I really want to just get a little bit of money right now. I'm in tough times. What am I going to have to get rid of? Man, the only thing I have to get rid of are these crazy high dollar military surplus rifles that are only going to go up. If whatever reason I need to cash in on a small investment, hey, I need a little bit of money right now, I'm going to pull probably one of my ARs out of the safe. But I'm going to get a little bit of cash right now, and I am not going to be out anything that I can't re-get down the road. It's not a big deal. I am not getting rid of one of my AKs that we'll talk about, or one of my military surplus rifles that I'm never going to get back again at that price. It'd be kind of the same as, like, I have cash on hand, and then I also have gold. If I need to use my cash savings, not the end of the world. I can get out more cash again and fill that up. I don't want to get rid of my gold savings, right? Because if I get rid of that, and it's not like I'm not like retiring right now, which is why I'm getting rid of this gold, I'm going to be into some problems. Because if I go to try to buy that gold again, stack it away, it's going to be worth significantly more than what I originally bought it at. My ARs are like my cash savings. The only time this is not the case is if you have a very specific AR-15 variation. This one is an HK MR556. There are many others that are like it. LMT, Knights Armament. There are some AR-15 variations that are worth a substantial amount of money. Now, with that being said, they are still not going to hold their value, in my opinion, over time like a military surplus rifle would, but it is obviously going to hold its value more than your basic generic built AR-15 or off-the-shelf AR-15. We can't talk about a video on investment and not talk about AKs. Completely ignore all of these rails that are going on here and just consider the base rifle. This is an Arsenal 107 FR. And with FR, you have a side folding stamped receiver. For the most part, these rifles are not made anymore, and the imported AK market as a whole is all flipped upside down. If you got into any imported AK whatsoever, and it's not being imported anymore, you, my friend, have an insane return on investment without even trying. Having an imported AK, these just increase in value. It is definitely a cash cow. You can get crazy on the investor side of the gun world, and you get guys that won't even touch or shoot their guns. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm not buying something to not use it, okay, at all. There are some things that maybe I'm a little more gentle with. I'm not going to be throwing them around the range because it's not necessarily one of my tools, but I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to shoot it as many times as I would like. I'm not going to worry about stuff like that because I believe it really is not going to make that much of a difference unless you have a never fired, new in box gun that you haven't even broke out of the saran wrap. Okay, sure, maybe that's a different story, but in this case, I'm gonna shoot, use, and mess with my guns. And this AK, for instance, I shoot the hell out of this AK, and I'm still viewing it as quite the investment. Imported AKs, huge right now. That may change over time, you never know. Maybe legislation change and all of a sudden they're gonna start importing a bunch of Russian AKs. Doubt that would happen anytime soon. But again, you never know, and that could change things a little bit. We have to talk about NFA items. This is an AP5 SD that has been fully converted. So I have an SD barrel. I have a suppressor on here. So this is a 2-stamp firearm. It is a short-barreled rifle, and then also I have the suppressor here, which is another stamp. There is almost no value in this rifle right here. There is almost no value in it. And I know many of you are screaming at the camera right now like, you're insane. What are you talking about? As a private individual trying to get rid of a short-barreled rifle and a suppressor, you are going to get hosed. Why are you going to get hosed? The ATF right now has an NFA E-form system. However, for a private transfer of an NFA item, you cannot use that E-form system. You have to file via paper. And not only do I have to file paper, the buyer has to wait until me, the seller, gets the approved Form 4 to then hand the rifle over to them. Not to mention, it's going to be, if it's a Form 1 SBR, engraved with my name on the side. Not so much, of course, with a factory NFA item. But this obviously hurts the value when an individual can just simply go to a gun shop and purchase this gun brand new. So they're going to need quite the incentive to want to deal with all that additional paperwork. Not to mention, they're going to have a hell of a lot of trust if they don't know that person, and I'm just going to have to say, hey man, I'll let you know maybe a year from now when I get that paper form back. Probably not going to be that long nowadays, but still, I'll let you know when that form comes in, and I'll go ahead and I'll transfer it, but give me the cash now, because if you don't, I got to submit the form, or give me half now. That is one of the many reasons why, again, these rifles and these suppressors are just not worth that much money. So if you're getting heavily into the NFA world, it is like we're talking fractions here that are actually worth any money, that are very highly collectible firearms. And of course, I'm not even talking about the transferable market. That's a different market to begin with anyways. But standard NFA items are about the worst type of investment you could get into in the firearms industry. These really are just money wasters. So I know many of you don't want to hear that. I know people out there where almost their entire collection is NFA items. You're not going to get zero for it, but you're going to take a bath every time. We can talk about pistols as well. For the most part, handguns are always kind of like a very neutral seller. This is an HK USP 45 Tactical, and going off of our, hey, if you can buy accessories that are really cool, they will increase the value. This is an original HK Insight Light, and this is actually fully functional and working all of its 2 lumens to get some output out. But this pistol itself is worth a substantial amount, and adding the light makes it worth a little bit more. If you buy pistols right, just like rifles, they can be just as valuable. But for whatever reason, I find that rifles, shotguns typically increase the value scale more than handguns do on a mass scale. There are many handguns that are worth a substantial amount of money, but the rules still apply. Military surplus, original, they end up doing well. The common theme here, supply and demand, but also stick with the weird stuff if you're going to get into collecting firearms. You can collect whatever you want to collect, but if you're collecting and you're saying to yourself, I want to collect this because I know it's going to be pretty valuable and our dollar is not worth a whole lot these days, so I want to put my money, I want to diversify my portfolio and put it into some guns too. Stick with the oddball stuff and it will probably always, at the very least, break even for you. If you go, I want to get into firearms for collecting, I've got my preparedness stuff set aside, I got my defensive stuff set aside, now I just kind of want to collect, and all you buy are hodgepodge AR-15 variations, you're going to be taking quite the bath. It is what it is. Now, when you get into the accessory market, lights, optics, other things, you can definitely turn and burn those on something like eBay, piece out your stuff, and get a little bit more, of course, but it depends on what it is. All of this, throw it out the window if you have, let's say, another assault weapons ban federal scare. All of a sudden, again, all of this is out the window, and I know people that made literally their retirement savings. It's not right, but I'm telling you, they did it in 2013 Sandy Hook times when they were selling Magpul PMags out the door in unopened packaging for $80 a piece, and they bought a pack of 100 at 10 a piece. So obviously, bans and political things change that very much so in the firearms world. And then also, what can change is just any crazy situation like 2020 here in the United States and really all over the world. Though that situation, you could have sold anything. You could have had a collection of pellet guns and still probably made your money on that. And just situations will change it routinely. Think of your military surplus rifles, your import AKs as kind of an index fund. And if you're not a money person, that's basically just, okay, I want a fund here that I can put my money into and just leave it there. For 60 years, there's going to be an 11% roughly increase in turn on my item. And with interest, with inflation over time, those will be worth a lot of money. Okay? An M1 Garand in the 1980s is a substantial return these days, okay, compared to what you put it in at. It's an index fund. It's going to do a lot of this, but it's going to do a lot of this, okay? So keep that in mind when you are purchasing your items. How do you get rid of these? A lot of people are like, okay, I have all these and all of a sudden, a tree fell on my house and I really need a little bit of cash because I got to fix the house. How am I going to return on this the best possible way? Nothing is going to be better depending on the state that you're in other than a private sale like everything else, because there are no additional fees involved and you're going to be able to ask for the most. You have, of course, things like tax swap and arms list and all of these other areas. Usually, if you piecemeal it out, you're going to be getting a little bit better of a return. And if you follow my advice and have some ARs as selling fodder, you can kind of piecemeal out maybe even an upper or a accessory, a flashlight, a red dot. All of these other things are piecemealed out and you end up making some money back. Usually, depending on the percentage, consignment is the best way to go at a gun shop because you can kind of call around and see who has the best consignment fees. Usually you're going to be anywhere from 10% to 18 or 20% of the total. So kind of pick your poison there, but you get to decide the price that it sells for. Downfall with consignment is you don't know when it's going to sell. It could sell the moment it gets to the shop. It could sell 2 years later. Most shops are going to have a timeline for consignment. So just keep that in mind. But the beauty of consignment is there's not really any harm or foul if it doesn't sell. You just got to do a 4473 and you get your item back for usually the price of a background check. Now, again, with that being said, it's not a great choice if you need money right now. I'm not even going to talk about like pawn shops and other things because obviously that is there. Finally, you have just bringing it into a shop to sell used. You're probably going to get hosed. That's just the reality of it. You're going to take a little bit of a bath. If it's an AR-15, not the end of the world because you can rebuild it. But just remember, maybe piecemeal it out ahead of time. If you're bringing it into a shop, you're going to get about 60%, 60 to maybe even 55% if it's a not great shop of what they're going to sell it for used. So they're going to take the amount. They're going to say, let's say I'm going to put this on the wall at $7.99. You're going to get 60% of $7.99. So just remember that, okay? Have your prices in your mind going in. Go to True Value, see what they're selling for right now. Take 70% of that number. Is that above what you paid for it or below? And maybe that should pick and choose whether, what you grab off of your wall to bring it into a shop. So this is one of the longest videos that I have made in a while. I'm not sure what it's going to come down to after editing it, but I hope somebody out there finds this helpful. This is an area that not a lot of people know about. A lot of people get into this and talk a big game of, hey, look at all this, look at this big cash cow that I have, and they have not purchased the right amount of stuff. And they find that out the hard way at some point or another. If you guys have any other questions, please comment down below and I will absolutely try my hardest to get back to you. While you're down there, head up to the description for the ways to support the channel. And as always, stay tuned for more great content coming soon.